When people think of Canada, they picture maple syrup, hockey, and maybe a moose or two. But there's way more going on in the Great White North. Canada's geography is a wild mix of extremes. From deserts to rainforests, Arctic tundras to dinosaur graveyards, it's home to gravity anomalies, thousands of glaciers, and landscapes that look like they belong on Mars. Whether you're a geography nerd or just someone who likes to have their mind blown, get ready. This country has some serious secrets. Starting off with the basics. If you took a boat and decided to sail around Canada's entire coastline, you'd better pack a lot of snacks. In addition to being the second largest country, Canada has the longest coastline in the world, stretching over 243,000 kilometers. That's longer than the coastlines of Indonesia, Australia, and Russia combined. The reason? It's not just size, it's the shape. Canada has a wildly irregular outline, filled with bays, inlets, peninsulas, and over 52,000 islands. Every twist and turn adds to the total. If someone actually tried to walk the entire thing non-stop, it would take them over 4 years, which is why Canada is considered a maritime powerhouse. And number 2, you've probably already heard that Canada is big, but only a few people actually grasp just how massive it really is. Spanning nearly 10 million square kilometers, Canada is the second largest country in the world, behind only Russia. That's big enough to stretch across 6 time zones and touch 3 oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Arctic. To put it into perspective, you could fit all of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and South Korea inside Canada and still have room left over. And even though it's that huge, over 80% of the population lives within 200 kilometers of the US border, leaving vast northern territories almost untouched. And number 3. Now, most people think Canada is only covered in snow and pine trees, but tucked into the southern interior of British Columbia is a shocker: the Isuyus Desert. Yes, Canada has a desert, complete with sand dunes, dry grasslands, and is home to the western rattlesnake. It's technically a semi-arid region, and it sees so little rain and gets so much sun that it's classified as desert-like. The town of Isuyus, located right in the middle of it, often records the hottest temperatures in Canada. Summer highs can reach well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It stands out as one of the most surprising and fascinating corners of the country. And number 4. Hidden in Manitoba lies a geographical oddity that most Canadians have never even heard of: the center of Canada. If you were to stretch a tape measure across the country, from the eastern tip of Newfoundland to the far western edge of the Yukon, the exact halfway point lands just outside of a tiny town called Landmark, not far from Winnipeg. There's even a roadside sign marking the spot. It's not a place with fanfare or flashy attractions, just a flat stretch of highway surrounded by prairie fields. But there's something oddly poetic about it. In the middle of this massive, diverse country lies a quiet little point where east meets west. A perfect middle of nowhere that's also the heart of it all. Number 5. Have you ever looked at a map of Canada and wondered what goes on in this part of the country? Travel far enough north in Canada and you'll find alert Nunvat, the northernmost permanently inhabited place on the planet, just 817 kilometers from the North Pole. This isn't just remote, it's next level remote. There are no roads leading in or out, and the nearest neighboring settlement is over 700 kilometers away. Yes, it's home to a military signals base and a weather station, staffed by a rotating crew of personnel braving some of Earth's harshest conditions. In winter, it's plunged into complete darkness for months. In summer, the sun never sets. Temperatures regularly dip below -40 degrees centigrade, and the landscape is a frozen wilderness. At number 6, let's head back to the Arctic, where Canada quietly claims one of the largest uninhabited islands on Earth, Devon Island. It's so barren, rocky, and cold that scientists use it as a stand-in for Mars. In fact, NASA regularly conducts simulated missions there to prepare astronauts for interplanetary travel. Devon Island spans over 54,000 square kilometers, yet it has 0 permanent residents, just a few researchers and expedition crews during the summer. The landscape is raw and alien, dotted with craters, ice caps, and windswept valleys. Standing there, you'd be forgiven for thinking you'd left Earth entirely, but it's just another example of Canada's unmatched geographic diversity. Number 7. Some people find this hard to believe, but nestled in the middle of Alberta's flat, rolling prairies is one of the richest fossil beds in the world. Dinosaur Provincial Park. This spot has yielded over 150 full dinosaur skeletons, with fossils representing more than 50 species. In fact, scientists have pulled so many bones out of the ground here that you can walk the trails and spot fragments still jutting out of the sandstone. But here's the wild part. Millions of years ago, this dry desert landscape was a lush, subtropical paradise teeming with life. Today, it's not only a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but a window straight into the Cretaceous period. Number 8. Way up in northern Saskatchewan, tucked along the southern edge of Lake Athabasca, lies a place that looks like it belongs in the Sahara. The Athabasca sand dunes are the northernmost dunes in the world, and they stretch for over 100 kilometers, like golden waves frozen in time, rising up to 30 meters high. These dunes are surrounded not by desert, but by boreal forests and freshwater lakes. The contrast is surreal. Pine trees on one side, sand mountains on the other. What's even more fascinating is that these dunes are home to a number of rare plant species that grow nowhere else on Earth. Among them are the Athabasca sand dune willow and the felt-leaved willow, which have uniquely adapted to survive the harsh, shifting sands of this northern desert. You can only reach the Athabasca by float plane or boat, and once you're there, it feels like stepping into another dimension. Number 9. Did you know Canada and France share a border? In addition to sharing the world's longest land border with the United States, stretching an incredible 8,891 kilometers. To the northeast, Canada also shares a small land border with Greenland, which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, on the remote and icy Hans Island. It's also a little-known fact that Canada shares a maritime boundary with France, not in Europe, but right off the coast of Newfoundland. The tiny islands of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon are all that remains of France's once vast colonial presence in North America. This unusual maritime boundary makes France one of Canada's nearest international neighbors, a surprising and often forgotten geographic connection. At number 10, Canada's wilderness is legendary. But what many don't realize is just how uninterrupted it really is. Stretching across the upper third of the country is one of the largest intact boreal forests left on the planet. It spans millions of square kilometers, from the Atlantic coast of Newfoundland to the mountainous wilds of the Yukon. In some regions, it's so untouched that no road, trail, or even logging path has ever been cut through it. Canada has one of the most preserved natural landscapes in the world. Over 2 million lakes, endless pine forests, and rugged coastlines make it a haven for wildlife and a dream for explorers. The vast wilderness supports animals like grizzly bears, moose, wolves, and millions of migratory birds that depend on the ancient trees. Canada is really a country with raw, natural beauty and breathtaking geography. At number 11. Speaking of lakes, lakes aren't just common in Canada, they're practically everywhere. In fact, Canada has more lakes than every other country on Earth combined. The total number? Over 2 million. And it's not just quantity. Canada also has some of the biggest. Lake Superior, Huron, and Great Bear are all enormous in their own right. Altogether, lakes cover about 9% of the entire country's surface. That means when you're flying over central or northern Canada, you're more likely to see more blue than green. It's not unusual for entire regions to be defined by the lakes they're surrounded by. So if you're into fresh water, Canada is basically your dreamscape. Number 12. If you're used to picturing the US-Mexico border with fences and deserts, the Canada-Denmark border might sound like a joke, but it's real and it's over a tiny, icy rock called Hans Island. For years, Canada and Denmark couldn't agree on who owned it, so every so often, someone from one side would visit the uninhabited rock, plant a flag, and leave a bottle of liquor, Canadian whiskey or Danish schnapps, like some kind of bizarre diplomatic prank war. The whole thing became known as the Whiskey War. Eventually, in 2022, they decided to officially split the island down the middle. So yeah, Canada now has a peaceful land border with the Kingdom of Denmark, and it's possibly the most polite territorial dispute in history. And number 13. Canada isn't exactly known for volcanoes, but hidden deep within British Columbia's rugged wilderness lies the Stikine Volcanic Belt, a chain of ancient and dormant volcanoes stretching across the landscape. This volcanic region includes striking peaks like Mount Meager and Mount Garibaldi. These aren't just scenic mountains, they're real volcanoes with explosive histories. In fact, Canada's last major eruption happened around 2,350 years ago at Mount Meager, and it was devastating, believed to have wiped out a nearby indigenous community. The ash layer from this eruption can still be found as far away as Alberta. Today, these volcanoes may look peaceful, but they're not extinct. They're dormant, which means one thing: the west coast of Canada is quietly resting on a sleeping giant. Number 14. If you were to take a canoe and paddle from the middle of Canada all the way to the Arctic Ocean, it might sound impossible, but it's not. That's because Canada has one of the most mind-blowing natural waterway systems on the planet, and at the heart of it is the Mackenzie River. This massive river stretches over 1,700 kilometers from Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories all the way to the Arctic Ocean. It's the longest river in Canada, cutting through vast wilderness and remote indigenous communities. And here's the kicker: the entire Mackenzie River system is so massive that it drains an area the size of Indonesia. It's like Canada as a built-in superhighway of fresh water running straight through its northern spine. Number 15. In the far north of Canada lies a place where gravity just doesn't feel right. Literally. The Hudson Bay region is one of the few places on Earth where gravity is slightly weaker than average. This anomaly was first discovered in the 1960s and has puzzled scientists for decades. The best explanation? It's a combo of two things: a massive ice sheet that once weighed down the area during the last ice age, and a weird flow of molten rock deep in the Earth's mantle. Together, they've created a tiny but measurable drop in gravity. You won't float away or anything, but if you step on a scale, you'll technically weigh a little less. At number 16. Most countries have a dramatic highest point, but Canada's Mount Logan is on a whole other level, rising an astonishing 5,959 meters in the remote Yukon wilderness. Mount Logan is a true giant. It's not only the highest point in Canada, but also the second tallest peak in all of North America, just behind Denali in Alaska. But what really makes Logan stand out isn't just the height, it's the mass. Mount Logan has the largest base circumference of any non-volcanic mountain on Earth. It's basically a frozen fortress, so massive that it creates its own weather system. That means temperatures at the summit can plunge below minus 40 degrees centigrade, even in summer. Reaching it isn't easy either. Mount Logan is incredibly remote, surrounded by glaciers and wilderness, and can only be accessed by aircraft or long expeditions on foot. Number 17. In Canada, you don't have to look far to find something record-breaking, and that includes waterfalls. While Niagara Falls grabs all the fame, the tallest waterfall in the country is hidden deep in the wilderness of British Columbia. It's called James Bruce Falls, and it plunges an astonishing 840 meters, making it more than 8 times taller than Niagara. It flows seasonally from a melting glacier and spills down a sheer cliff in Princess Louisa Marine Provincial Park. Because of its remote location and short flow period, most people have never heard of it, let alone seen it. But if you ever get the chance to witness it, it's like watching a mountain cry. At number 18. When people think of massive regions, they might picture Texas or even Alaska. But Quebec dwarfs them both. At over 1.5 million square kilometers, it's bigger than Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom combined. For context, Quebec is a province, Canada's version of a state, but on a scale that's hard to imagine. One single province stretches from Montreal all the way to the Arctic Circle, Despite its size, most Quebecers live in the south, clustered around a few urban centers. The rest? It's sprawling wilderness, dotted with lakes, cliffs, dense forests, and tiny indigenous communities, reachable only by bush planes. You could spend a lifetime exploring Quebec and still not see it all, because this isn't just a province, it's practically a country within a country. Number 19. When it comes to ancient history, Canada is literally built on it. In a remote part of northern Quebec, scientists discovered some of the oldest rocks on Earth, dating back over 4.28 billion years. That's just a few hundred million years after the planet itself formed. These ancient formations, known as the Nunvat greenstone belt, are so old that they predate most known fossils, and even some theories about how the Earth's crust solidified. In other words, Canada isn't just rich in natural beauty, it holds physical evidence of the Earth's earliest days, long before life even had a chance to begin. At number 20, Canada has its very own Dead Sea, where you can float effortlessly like a feather. That Dead Sea is Little Manitou Lake, located near Saskatoon in the middle of the prairies. This unique body of water contains nearly 5 times the salt concentration of the ocean, making it impossible for swimmers to sink even if they tried. The lake is also rich in sodium, magnesium, and potassium salts that not only keep swimmers bobbing on the surface, but are also believed to have therapeutic properties. As a result, visitors from across the country come to experience the strange sensation of floating without effort, while seeking relief for skin conditions and joint pain. Number 21. One of the strangest places in Canada is the Magnetic Hill in Moncton, New Brunswick. At first glance, it looks like a regular slope on a rural road, but drive to the bottom, take your foot off the brake, and your car will start rolling uphill. It's not magic or a malfunction, it's a natural optical illusion caused by the layout of the surrounding land. Trees, hills, and the road's grade trick your brain into thinking you're looking at a downward slope when it's actually slightly uphill. It's a geographical quirk so convincing that even people who know the science still feel a sense of disbelief. Thousands visit every year to test it out for themselves, and every time, it feels like Canada's playing a little trick on you. 22. There's a place in Canada where the ocean vanishes twice a day. The Bay of Fundy, located between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, has the highest tidal range in the world. The difference between high tide and low tide can reach over 50 feet. When the tide goes out, it exposes vast stretches of seabed, allowing people to walk on the ocean floor like it's a giant muddy sidewalk. You can even find fossilized footprints embedded in the rocks. But don't hang around too long. The water comes roaring back in, faster than you can run. It's not just a cool sight, it's one of the world's most dramatic natural events. Number 23. Somewhere deep in the wilderness of northern Canada lies one of the world's most brain-twisting geographical features. Victoria Island, nestled between Nunvat and the Northwest Territories in northern Canada, boasts some impressive records. It's the 8th largest island in the world, even bigger than Great Britain, and the 2nd largest island in Canada. But size alone isn't what makes Victoria Island truly remarkable. What sets it apart is one of the world's most mind-bending geographical oddities. The largest known third-order island. That's an island in a lake, on an island in a lake, on an island. This strange nested land formation is so remote that it went undiscovered until someone spotted it on Google Earth. It's not easy to reach, and chances are no one's ever stepped foot on that inner island. Number 24. Canada has its fair share of geographic extremes, but one of the most dramatic lies deep in the remote Nahani National Park Reserve in the Northwest Territories, the South Nahani River. This river winds through one of the most stunning and mysterious valleys in the world, home to Virginia Falls, surrounded by towering cliffs, boiling hot springs, and caves filled with ancient fossils. The entire area is so remote that it wasn't fully mapped until the 1960s. The indigenous Dean people have revered this land for centuries, calling it sacred. To this day, many parts of it remain virtually untouched. Number 25. To wrap it all up, The border between Canada and the United States isn't just long, it's the longest international border on the planet. It runs a jaw-dropping 8,891 kilometers, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific in the west, and even curling up into Alaska. But what really blows people's minds is that this entire border is undefended. No walls, no military checkpoints, no watchtowers, just a thin line that quietly separates two of the world's largest countries. There are border stations, of course, but compared to many other parts of the world, it's incredibly relaxed. The Lomond Sinkhole in western Newfoundland stands as one of Canada's most impressive geological formations. This natural wonder measures 30 meters deep and 45 meters wide, featuring a small brook that creates a waterfall plunging into the depression before disappearing into the underlying rock structure. This remarkable formation developed through a fascinating process. Acidic water gradually dissolved the limestone beneath a layer of slate, creating a cave that eventually collapsed. Wood Buffalo National Park is Canada's largest national park and the second largest in the world, spanning 44,741 square kilometers across Alberta and the Northwest Territories. It received UNESCO World Heritage designation in 1983. The park safeguards the Peace Athabasca Delta, one of the world's largest inland freshwater deltas. Perhaps most impressively, it contains the world's largest beaver dam, measuring an astonishing 850 meters long. Canada holds the record for the world's tallest vertical drop, and it's enough to make even professional climbers think twice. Mount Thor in Nunvat features a mind-blowing cliff face that plunges 1.25 kilometers, curving outward at a 105-degree angle like a massive wave frozen in stone. This means if you drop a baseball from the top, it would fall for a full 10 seconds without ever touching the cliff on its way down. However, while most mountains have slopes you can at least attempt to climb, Mount Thor's overhang makes it one of the most intimidating climbing challenges on the planet. Canada is perfectly positioned to see the Northern Lights better than almost anywhere else on Earth, thanks to a lucky quirk of geography. Much of Canada's northern territory sits directly under the auroral oval, a massive ring that circles the Earth's magnetic pole, where these dancing lights are most concentrated and intense. In Churchill, Manitoba, which locals proudly call the Aurora capital of the world, the skies light up with these ghostly green, purple, and blue curtains of light on up to 300 nights per year. While other countries might catch glimpses of the aurora a few times annually, Canadians in these regions can simply step outside on a clear night and look up to witness this spectacular phenomenon that most people only see in photographs. To wrap it all up, did you know Canada is home to the longest freshwater beach in the world? Wasaga Beach in Ontario stretches an impressive 14 kilometers along Lake Huron's Georgian Bay. Unlike ocean beaches with their salt water and tides, this natural wonder offers crystal clear freshwater swimming that draws thousands of visitors each summer. The beach is so long you could walk for hours and still not reach the end. Which other country's geography can compare to that of Canada? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more mind-blowing geography facts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.